will you please enforce the 5-minute rule?
Yes, sir. I will do that.
Thank you.
I have a comment about respecting. I think there's a huge difference between asking for respect and demanding respect. You know what I mean? Because I get a lot of attitude from my friends too, you know, like they think they're the gift, you know, and they should get respect just because I'm in their presence. And I think that works both ways, you know. People come, well, why are you know, you pulled me over. Well, why am I supposed to respect you? You pulled me over for no reason. And right away it's and I think there's a huge thing between asking for respect and demanding respect. And I think that's where the communication thing is. And what I meant to say earlier when you were talking is, I think what has happened with the community and the police is the media tells us that your policemen are not your friend. You know what I mean? The media has a huge thing. And when a cop does a good thing, like he rescues somebody from just about dying, and his life was on the line, and just 2 seconds saved both of their lives. You don't really hear that on the media. You know, you don't hear that he risked his life to save somebody else's life. You hear well, they beat up this guy and they beat him down. And then that gets played every 5 minutes instead of, hey, this guy rescued somebody. And that gets played every 5 minutes. You know, for me, the media has a huge role in all of us pointing our fingers at each other. You know, because like I don't drink, I quit drinking. When I quit drinking, all my friends who were smoking were pointing, you know, they're pointing, you know, and they're puffing away, drinking away. And it was like, I found that people are willing to point the finger. You know what I mean? And the media has a real big thing about saying, hey, well, you know, look. And then yeah, look, yeah. And everybody starts pointing their finger because the media pointed the finger. You know, and the media points the fingers at the cops all the time. You know, and the music too, the TV too, you know what I mean? It's not just the news, it's the media, the hip hop artists that come out now, the rock artists that come out now. You know, it's all full of a distrust for each other, you know. Don't trust this guy, you know, he's sitting next to me, he's different. I shouldn't trust him, or I shouldn't trust this guy. He's got a German name, I shouldn't trust him either. You know what I mean? And that's not the way it is. The communication is a big thing for us. We need to communicate. You know, the respecting it. And I think the media just destroys us. You know, we need to get them out of, you know, social media is a good thing, but the media as selling us an idea is wrong.
So you're saying that the media needs to be held accountable?
Yeah, the media definitely is. And I don't mean to say held accountable. If they say something that we don't really want to hear, they should still be allowed to say that. Even if I do not agree with whatever they say. But if they say something that's inflammatory and it's found out later to not be true, you know, it needs to not be buried in page 27 on the bottom of the little thing. It needs to be front page, hey, look, we screwed up. We're sorry. And they don't do that anymore. You know, it's all about my clothes or whatever, you know. And
you have
bad
about 2
information.
minutes left. Do you want to?
No, I was just wanting to comment on the media thing.
Thank you. Someone else want to speak to what you're hearing?
I do.
Okay.
I think by and large, the police officers act on the basis of what is known as probable cause. And I want Larry's opinion on this also. A police officer doesn't or shouldn't pull somebody over or detain somebody unless there is reason, legitimate reason to do so. And that legitimate reason in lawyer talk is known as probable cause. He's weaving from lane to lane. That's probable cause. He's black in color. That's not probable cause. He's got a German last name. He wouldn't even know that before he pulled him over. But that's not probable cause. He's got a broken headlight. That's probable cause. He's talking on a telephone, obviously, while he's driving the car. That's probable cause. being black is not probable cause. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
So I've heard a lot about, there's been lots of discussion around the reasons and the demeanor and the frustrations around what's happening and why all of this is happening. I'm wondering if people have thought about, being that this has been the experience, kind of what has been some solutions to those bad experiences. How do we actually get past, sounds like what John was saying is that if the police officers pull somebody over, there needs to be probable cause. You were talking about the fact that it's about public safety, and it just doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong, but that you are actually trying to be preventative in something bad happening. So I guess what I'm asking is if we could start thinking about how could that be better? What would that look like? And solutions and suggestions around that.
I recently attended an active shooter class.
An active what?
An active shooter class that was offered by the state. I work for the state.
Okay.
And I became very disturbed during this class because the man who was teaching this class was a state trooper. And he was formerly in Blackwater. And he repeatedly said during this class, I can't even count the number of times that he said this. He said every time a police officer puts their badge on, they're entering into a combat zone. Repeatedly he said this. And this is the attitude that has got to stop. Because our city streets, this is not a war zone here, regardless of what we call that neighborhood over there. And this militarization. And one other point is, I'm a nurse. My husband's a nurse. He works in the emergency room, and he has for a number of years at UNM. And you know, they deal with these people day in and day out, and they're not doing it by pointing assault weapons at them. And this needs to stop. Those are two solutions. We've got to change this attitude of this combat mentality. When they get in their cars, they're in combat. And we've got to do something about pointing assault weapons at people who are having a mental illness crisis. That's not the way to handle them. You don't have to be schizophrenic to freak out when you got 40 assault weapons pointed at you.
So basically what you're saying is when the officers approach citizens and they, and that approach should be more
Human?
sensitive, so human in the sense, define what you
Take the
consider
military mentality away. Take the military weapons away. Take away the tanks. Take away these armored vehicles that they send in to deal with these people who are having a mental health crisis. I don't think this is rocket science. I think this is common sense.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that that we're grasping what you're saying is that the thought or the mentality of public safety officers should be not to go out and fight a war, but to actually serve the public in a way that does not feel like there is chaos and there is a war to be fought.
And speaking about the homeless, you know, I've spent a lot of time with Andy since October. We've been spending every weekend talking to people on the streets about their experiences with police officers. Overwhelmingly, they are afraid to complain. They were afraid to even talk to us.
Thank you.
And I think people need to go. I think our mayor, for starters, needs to go out and talk to a few homeless people. You know, you can't help people when you don't know what they need. And he needs to get out and talk to these people himself to assess their problems and their needs. He's not willing to do that. But I talked to some homeless people, I won't say where, but they actually named 2 cops, 2 badge numbers, and said that these 2 cops daily go around and beating up homeless people.
I have a quick poll. How many people here have hugged a homeless person? Hugged?
Hug.
You know, give them an embrace, brought them close?
I've not done that.
Okay.
May I reiterate what just was said? And before I comment further, I want to say that I've been at meetings with Klaus before, and Klaus is an honorable, caring man. And when I talk about the department, it's not directed at you, Klaus. Because the department has 50 years before you came of bad service to this community. And if I can use the Boyd case as the departure point, which relates to the discussion today on so many levels, and if I can just real briefly, in terms of that, address the media. I think we all don't like the media. My reasons are very different from most people's. It was the media that brought that case to the world, that was exemplified of the way APD has done business with this community for 50 years. When families of victims of APD violence could not get the mayor or the previous police chief to respond to the needs of the community, banded together and went to the federal government to resolve our local problem because our local leadership refused to deal with the problem. The department refused to deal with the problem. In that case, the media served the community by highlighting that tragic death in the foothills that never should have happened. I also want to share that in response to this situation, when the mayor and the department was recalcitrant and the city council tried to take up the reins and at least give people a voice in chambers, that one of the local media stations on reporting that at the nightly news led with the line, "There was police bashing at city council tonight." So the media doesn't serve anybody. And while people complain they painted the police in a bad light, my impression is they haven't been industrious enough about reporting all of the police crime that takes place in this city. We want a police department, as people have already said, that responds to community needs. If we're all part of the community, we know that the mental health community is not served here. We know that the homeless community is not served here. So when we deal with them, we have to deal with them on that level. We know if we're part of the community that there aren't, except for some private institutions where some of us give our time, there aren't any structured ways of dealing with the homeless, except as the mayor has dealt with the homeless by using the police to move them out of where they are. There is no structured response to the needs of the mental health community. That may be one of the few good things that's come out of this whole debate, is that finally the community will say, we need more services for these people. You know, who wants to live in a community where the least of us are not served by the wealth that the rest of us have? None of us. None of us. But if the police department can't respond to the homeless with their needs in mind, if the police department can't respond to the mentally ill with the understanding these folks are mentally ill and they have to be dealt with as members of this community in a community way. Two of the deaths, I've sat at the table and listened to parents of dead children who wanted to intervene with APD when their children were in mental crisis issues, and APD refused. That doesn't serve the community. It doesn't show that APD has any knowledge or care about what's going on in the community.
So the idea is to look at some of the goals of changing all of that, and you're talking about APD's response with respect to the illness that does exist out there, and that needs to be something that is well recognized, and something that if the APD is expected to deal with this, then the idea is
see, and I have to agree, it's not fair, it's not right, it's absolutely, I hate to use John's word, stupid, that APD has been expected to deal with those issues. We should be, as a community, able to deal with those issues. And we haven't. But we also haven't had the leadership that will deal with those issues.
Let me speak.
yes, are you done?
Yes,
You
I,
have a minute. Just kidding.
Bernalillo County has a mental health center at UNMH. Everything you said is not 100% accurate. There are numerous homeless shelters around Albuquerque, and I have been in the kitchen feeding homeless at one of those shelters. So I wish that when we talk, that we try to be more accurate in what we propose to the rest of us.
well, John, do you know how long people are served in those homeless shelters?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Do you?
Yes. Sometimes only a
Fine.
week,
I don't want
sometimes
to argue
two.
with you.
No,
But just let me respond.
but I'm saying there are issues within that system that don't serve this community. And those of us who have been downtown working with some of the tent city folks have seen that firsthand. And the local government has failed to address those needs and has left it up to a lot of private organizations to fill in the gaps. And there's only so much that those good-hearted people can do because of the system. And the same with mental health.
So we need to break in a little bit, but I don't want to leave it here. So I hear John saying that there are services and that there are actually ways for homeless to be served. And you're saying yes, but there's not enough, and that needs to be looked at. Let's hear Larry, and then we'll go with you.
I wanted to touch a few things that have been mentioned. One thing on the media, as you started, you said the media jumped on the John Boyd thing. Actually, it wasn't the media that presented it. It was Chief Eden who released the video to the media to say that the shooting was justified. And so it, just to sort of clarify that aspect of it. And there was also talk about, you talking about the media jumps on, when cops do bad things. In all of our professions, we have expectations of work that we do. We have a lot of expectations of cops. One of those is to be of service in saving lives. That is part of their job, and we respect that, and I think they need even more training than we give them to deal with the issues and also the consequences of dealing with those issues. That they come across a body mangled in a car, that's highly traumatic. But we have that expectation that that's part of their job and they're going to do it. That's not necessarily, especially looking at it from a news perspective, that's not necessarily news. It can be covered that something happened, but we expect them to do that, just like I'm expected to represent my clients in a professional manner. Now, if I rip off my clients, that's news and that should be reported. If I abuse my responsibility, the trust that my clients have in me and society as a lawyer, If I abuse that trust and responsibility, that is news and does need to be reported. And so I don't see it as, taking a whip out and slashing cops and repeating it. It's news in the community, and we're responsible for our police department. We need to know what's going on so that we can take some action, that we can give response, that we can hold them accountable, just as we're all held accountable in any of our professions to be doing the right job and not abusing our positions. And we trust them to carry guns, to carry weapons, to use those weapons. And so those things we need to hold them also accountable when that's abused, that trust is abused.
So we're going to hear from Jairus, and we're going to have to break.
Okay, I often just said that when they were talking about, they had this debate about, disagreement about mental health and mental health people and the services provided. But it's a certain, I'm not going to say it's 1%, I'm not going to put a percent on, but I'm going to just use 1% of the mental health people. They don't want no help at all. So what are you going to do with those people? They're not willing to go in the shelter. They're not willing to take their medication. They're not willing to talk to a counselor. They're not willing to talk to a friend to try to help them. So that type of person, you can't help that person unless they want to be helped. So what are you going to do as far as citizens? What services do you want to provide for them?
I think we need to, as a society, accept the fact that there are lots of people who don't want help. I think that's the first step. We have to accept that fact. And another fact is a lot of these homeless people do not want to go to these shelters for various reasons. A lot of it's the religion. A lot of it is because they say they're full of bed bugs. I've talked to I don't know how many people that have told me that Joy Junction is full of bed bugs. And another thing is they complain that their things get stolen. And if they go to the West Side shelter, then they're woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be driven back over here. But of course now the West Side shelter is closed.
So there's the idea that there are shelters, they're not the best. It's not something that, homeless people really want to go, and they really don't want to receive those services for those kinds of reasons.
Right.
There's the reasons that,
I would rather
they're just not in a
intense.
space where they want to take that medication and they don't want the help. So there's a lot of struggles there, and we started this discussion by saying that how are police officers and how they can be expected to deal with this issue. It's much bigger. So we're going to go ahead and take a break, and if we do 10 minutes? 10 minutes, and then there's pizza and water back there if you all are hungry, and then we'll get back. We need everybody back in the circle, please. Yeah.
We may have a couple lines. Terribly. So I don't have to.
So we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to check in with those of you that have not had an opportunity to speak. If there's something that you want to say in regards to the first question that we addressed about how we want police-community relationships to be, because we're going to move into now how we want interactions, looking at the interaction aspect of it. So anybody here that has not had a chance to speak, is there something you'd like to say? Would you include anything like that? Or just last minute comments on that, in that aspect?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. The thing that I think has to happen is that at the very top, and I mean police and the community at large, we need to refocus how we talk about people with mental illness or people that are homeless. When we label people as schizophrenic or bipolar or a drug addict or an alcoholic, I think that really sheds a negative stigma on people. And so I really love, and I work in the mental health field, and I've been trying to get my colleagues, even in the psychiatric field, to start referring to their clients as a person with schizophrenia Because I think that just puts, we're all human beings first, we're not our label. And so I just kind of want to put that out, that I hope that people can sort of take that.
Somebody isn't cancer.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. You had a comment.
I just got here on
If you could just introduce yourself,
My
my
name
name
is
is
Barbara Purvis.
And you're
I
with?
am,
Concerned Citizen, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I've been working with the homeless for some time now, who are victims of police violence at much higher rates than regular people who have houses. Almost every person living on the street can talk about the police violence they've personally experienced, not once, but many times. Particularly if they're Native American, anybody living on the street is vulnerable to police violence. So I just want to say that. But the thing that is sort of amazing to me working with these people is that most of them actually have incomes. They are on
I'm sorry, have what?
income. They are on SSI, Social Security. They simply do not make enough money to live where they have to pay rent. And the administration and the police criminalize them. All people living on the street are treated as though they are lesser human beings than the rest of us. And though it is their fault that they are homeless, they just seem to need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. No, these people have incomes of $600, $700 a month. That's it. My sister would be one of those people if she didn't have a family who had a way to provide for her a place to live. So we need to quit demonizing, categorizing people who are living on the street as unworthy in any way of our compassion, of our care, and of their needs. And the administration needs to stop with the talk that it's their fault, and that if they don't accept what's offered to them, they don't want help. Some of these people don't want help, they just want to be left alone, to live in their tent quietly and have their own, and not have to pay rent.
So are you saying that, because we're talking about police, homeless interactions, if you will, are you saying that police are demonizing the homeless, or I'm not sure how that
It's
fits?
just like she said, it's from the top down. The administration, which is the police department as far as I'm concerned, I don't know how individual police manage their own situations on the street, but the talk about the homeless, the chasing them around, the demonizing them as though something they're doing is wrong and they are bad people because they're all drug addicts, alcoholics, or have mental health problems and they don't want help. That's wrong.
Okay, so
Most
you're
of the
saying
people-
there's a group of people that are actually out there and they're comfortable with being out there, they just
No,
want
they're
to-
not comfortable. They don't have any option.
Okay,
They do not have the option because they do not have the financial resources. They have financial resources, $600, $700, $800 a month. That's what they get, checks. They're vulnerable at the shelters to having their money stolen, their phones stolen, their few little possessions stolen. They're vulnerable to disease, bed bugs, all this kind of stuff. And it is better for them, they prefer to live in a tent where they have autonomy than to go to a place where they're vulnerable to all these other things. And it's because the administration has this idea that they're all losers who could better themselves if they did something different. No.
so the
They
stereotyping
simply-
needs to stop.
Well, the demonizing is what I would call it.
All right, so we're going to get...
Criminalizing.
So we're going to get to the next question because we don't have much time left. We have about an hour, we still need to do a lot of work. So we're going to go now, we're going to kind of shift, and I think that maybe we've intertwined the relationships and the interaction aspects of this, but we want to concentrate on more about what are your goals and expectations, and if you can really try and focus on those goals and expectations for police and community in regards to their interactions, or in regards to conduct. So the community towards the police and the police towards the community. And so we're talking about homeless. And so what, from your perspective, what, what is it, what kind of skills, or what is it that maybe the homeless could use towards APD so that interaction isn't so bad, and maybe looking at APD and how their interactions with the homeless improve so that we don't have the problems that we do. So if you could really focus on that, use your cards if you want, to write your ideas down. We're going to give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll start talking about that aspect of what we're dealing with. And that question is on your handout, if you need that to help clarify your process, what we're moving towards here.
So you're rejecting me?
She rejected.
I don't need the help you're offering, thank you. I'll take care of myself with that.
Barbara and I can
Was there a misunderstanding about that?
What?
Oh, was it too straight of a delivery there?
Well, by this stage of our meetings, usually there isn't such hostility.
It's not really.
They put something in their
But it
pizza.
sounded, so I'm glad you
That's
clarified.
why.
I'm glad you clarified.
Let's go ahead and get started. So again, going back to the expectations between police and community, and our focus now is if we have some goals or some expectations, what would that be? And so I'm going to ask you all to share from, obviously we have one officer here, but can speak from an APD perspective. Community can speak from that perspective as well as to what officers, what those goals are, what those goals would be from officers, but also for those of you representing the homeless community, if you can tell us sort of what goals and expectations you have, or what the homeless community would have in regards to the way the interaction is happening.
Just clarification. Claus is representing himself and not APD, correct?
Sorry, I misspoke. Thank you for clarification. He's not the...
Designated spokesperson.
Yes, sorry.
He's a designated class.
I'll get it started then. All that I want to say is my expectation is that a member of the community and the police are a member of the community as well, and that we communicate out to others in their areas where they work, live, play, how we want to be treated, and how things are going. And I'll reiterate back on that, and that's a respect factor if we want to be treated differently from the homeless, or want the homeless treat us differently, then we need to make sure that they understand how we expect to be treated. Now, we can say, well, everyone should know that. Well, obviously, that's not the case, so we need to communicate that out. If we want to say that there are people that are mentally ill, and but we don't know that as an officer going in that situation, then obviously we need to make sure that in the places where these people reside, play again, we need to get the information out. Part of that information needs to be, how we expect to interact. The other part needs to be where these meetings are, so they can attend. That has to be out there. They have a voice, they want to talk about it, where they are, where they're fed. We need to get the information out there, and they need to say, on the wall, these are the meetings that are coming up, and this is where they are. This is the expectation of how you want to be interacting for the respect factor. We need to get that information out there in whatever media, social media, or whatever, billboards again, I'll say, we need to put it, if you don't put the information out there, it's not going to happen. If you don't go tell the homeless in their place where they're at, the meeting is going to be over here, they're not going to show up. If you don't have the meeting over there where they're at, so they can, they don't have the transportation to get there, they're not going to show up. Now, we can talk about things are done on purpose so that, maybe they can't show up, but we need to make sure that if I'm a concerned citizen, and I work and I do not, by the way, work in a homeless shelter or in the kitchen, and I want these people to show up, I'm going to put flyers and information out there for them so they can show up. The other aspect of the community is I would like the police department to be able to deal with people, various people in various environments. So my expectation is that they're going to be trained that way. And so I would hope that we're communicating to the police people and training the chiefs that this is the type of training that we expect our officers to have so they can better interact with the homeless or the mentally ill. Even though when they initially get there, they're probably not going to know that. They probably aren't going to know that when they initially get there. So, but that's part of the training aspect when you get out there. So if we don't provide that medium, we don't tell them, training from their part, from the officer's part, then, we're going to keep talking about it. 5 years from now, we're going to be talking about the same thing. 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about the same thing. So the homeless stuff is going on in every major city. It's actually happening. So what we're talking about is not new. We just got to get the information out there to people, and then from an officer standpoint of view, they have to be trained. Because no matter how you look at it, we're going to expect, we hold the officer in a higher esteem, and we expect more from them because they're a public servant and they interact with people. So that's the expectation. They understand that when they sign up. So let's give them the proper training so they can do the job that we need them to do. So that's my soapbox.
Primarily the mental health training is what you're talking about.
Yeah, but also they have to be trained. And then for the people from the public, we got to communicate to them, this is what we need, this is where things are, so they can voice their opinion.
I'd like to tag on to the idea of training, education. I think training, we have talked a lot about police training, which is very important. But I would like, as a concerned citizen, to talk about training and education of community members within the community. How to react or to respond, I guess I should say, to police presence. And I know we talked about this at a previous meeting, and there was information provided on YouTube. Well, not everybody is a YouTube person. Billboards, media, television. I guess we have a TV reporter here this afternoon. And one of the concerns that several of us brought up before was participation not only of the TV and written press like Albuquerque Journal to produce media information, but for the staff, for the editors, for the chiefs to be part of the discussion. That would be really an amazing group of people to get into one of these circles. So that is one of my chief expectations, and how we might be able to achieve some additional ideas. Certainly, there are cities in the United States that have dealt with homelessness, homeless people issues in different ways. Maybe there are a couple of those ideas that we could piggyback onto and get the community involved, the city involved in solving the housing issue. There have been starts and stops. There are other kinds of group homes and various kinds of things that we might look into. That's my 2 cents.
So sharing of those resources beyond just the city and what we have.
My issue with the training is you can't train compassion.
No, you can't.
You can't. You could throw all the training I want, and it's not gonna do any good. You know, and us to have expectations from the homeless, they're gonna be in a different state of mind than they normally would be. Some of them are gonna be on drugs. So telling them to do something is gonna go in one ear and out the other. The only way they're gonna ever remember something is if it monetarily benefits them. Then they'll go, hey, you know, I can make a couple bucks off that. And that's where the big issue is, because it's all about funding. You know, when you said about housing, how many empty houses do we have in New Mexico? We have all kinds of empty houses, you know what I mean? But we can't give a family with the house just, you know, maybe for a month, maybe have the guy move in and fix the house while he's there. But no, it's somebody else would lose out on the money. And money is the big thing, you know, that's the biggest thing in all our way, because the police officers need more training and that'll cost money. They need better guns, well, that'll cost more money. You know, like our soldiers, we don't even give the best that we could. And those people out there are defending our lives, and we give them half of what we could. We should give them 150% of what we have, you know, and we don't do that. Money, 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 money. You know, so to expect something from the homeless people is just, that's not gonna work. They need to be, their issues need to be valid, but to expect something from them when somebody's all whacked out on drugs, you know what I mean? You're really not gonna get the right thing you want. Now, if they're at a space in their life where, you know, where I was at a point in time and I was like, you know, this is really ridiculous. All this behavior that's happening, all this is ridiculous. I need to go this way, whereas everybody else is going this way. And luckily, if I didn't go that way, I'd probably be dead by now. You know, but my mental state was, you know, I didn't care about my mother, my mom's here, you know, I didn't care about her. I cared about the drugs. You know what I mean? I didn't care about going to work, I cared about the drugs. You know what I mean? So expecting from the homeless that's not gonna happen, you know. Expect them to give you a hard time, and then we'll be good. You know what I mean? And it's not that way from all of them, because some of them are very compassionate. I think I got married one time because she came up to me and she's like, all your baggage, you have to have them before you act. And then she took my arm and we walked 3 steps forward and we walked 3 steps back. We walked 3 steps and we're married now. And I was like, what? You know, but, and as far as the expectations from the police force, we have reached the technological development to where we can use non-lethal force for everything. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Demolition Man, they use sticky paste to put somebody on the ground. You know what I mean? Granted, if he's shooting at you and he's coming at you, you don't have that option. But if he's standing there going blah, 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 and you need to defuse the situation, fill him full of glue, he's now like this, he can't move, you put him off, you take him to the hospital, and you see what issues are being dealt with. Instead of creating a scene where people can pull out their phones and say, oh, look, I took this out of context, this is what really happened. You know, and we do. We live in a society where we could use non-lethal force.
So there's like short-term and long-term solutions, and where I think that we're getting too confused around, or not confused, but there's issues around why homelessness exists. And I think that we've heard all over that homelessness exists. You're saying for, you know, some people that are drug abuse, some people that are just can't afford a home, some people there's mental illness, and I mean, I couldn't even begin if I really sat here and you know, tried to figure out why they're homeless. It's really not my place, but the fact is there's quite a few. It's causing a lot of harm in our community, and police are having to deal with it. So the idea around this whole thing is looking at how then can the community and APD get to a place, or us as community members get to a place where we can really serve both. It's all about public safety, and how do we focus on it being public safety.
We have actually sent a proposal to the city for a sanctioned tent city. You know, there's a whole group of people here in Albuquerque given a piece of dirt. We'll do some work with these homeless. But
And I'm
we've
sure
got to
there's
accept the
ground-
fact that a lot of these people do not want to go to shelters. They'd rather live in their tent. And you know what? We should let them do that. That's another thing. It's not hard, but the mayor wants to give more money to all these shelters. In fact, he's done it. And he won't even consider this very professionally drawn up proposal for what this community of homeless people want. God forbid we give them anything that they want or need.
Barbara?
Something that I would like to bring to the group is the idea that when homeless people are moved from one place to another, and the police are called in to do that, community members have called for the police action for the city to act. So I think, again, with Carolyn, educating people, what people can do about homeless people in the community. One of the things that I wanted to get some insight into today is the people who work the street corners for money. And I mean, I recognize a lot of people because I do the same route frequently. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? How are we as a community to help and be part of the solution rather than just complaining and saying, I don't want them in my backyard. James Boyd, the police didn't go looking for him. Community members called and asked for the police to go there. And then things that happened were, got totally out of control, it seems. But how can we get the community to understand what the needs are of homeless people? I'm not going to start hugging homeless people any more than I'd hug anyone in this group. But I think that what you mean by a hug is how can we help? How can we recognize that homeless people are people, and they're people with needs, and they're people with gifts? So my solution is I don't mean just, my solution is for us as a community to care enough to become educated about what we can do to come up with a solution that's better than what we're doing now.
Question for all of us. Where do homeless people urinate? Where do homeless people defecate?
We provide
I
quality
defecate at least once a day in my bathroom. Where do they defecate?
It depends.
What?
Sometimes it's where they can. I know for the 10 cities that have been up, the different community members have provided a porta potty for them to do so.
Which is slowly
And this is an issue that I've been addressing with the city for at least 15 years, probably more, saying that we have no public facilities. We don't have toilets in the parks.
Why
We don't
not?
have,
Why not?
there's excuses, but because the powers that be, the policymakers, have decided they don't want to do that, and part of the reason they do that is that they don't want to provide a place for the homeless
They don't want to
use the
encourage it.
facilitate, they
They
don't
don't
want to
wanna
encourage
encourage
that. Or they want to push them out of
Oh.
those certain areas so that they're unseen.
Right, that's the main thing. They don't want you to notice it. They can't discourage it because there's no way they can stop it when people who are making $600 a month have to pay $500 in rent. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna say it again, most of the people who I've met living on the street are collecting Social Security or SSI or some kind of disability or pensions. They
Or
simply
appealing their denial
do
for their
not
SSI.
have enough money to pay rent. So where do they go to the bathroom? Anywhere they can. We have been providing toilets for them. We have been getting them cleaned, and the city has taken one of our toilets and disposed of it. That we pay for ourselves and pay to have cleaned, because they don't want to tolerate anybody who doesn't want to submit to the system they have provided, which is a shelter. Not everybody wants to go there for a lot of reasons we've already said.
Or the voucher, that there's been publicity of out of the mayor's office while we were providing vouchers for people. A voucher that was provided to some people lasts for a week. Then where are they going to go? It doesn't solve the problem. It sort of perhaps pushes it to the side for a little bit. A week voucher doesn't give the person who's getting the voucher time to get sense of stability, doesn't have a time for them to have a sense of self-realization and a sense of feeling good about themselves, a chance to then have a place from which they can get a job. You know, it's not a solution, but that's one of the few solutions that the city has offered.
So what does it take, and I'm going to ask this because we need to get into some solutions here, what does it take to get the homeless the jobs? What does it take to get them the mental health care? What does it take to get them a place to live? I mean, we have the problem, and we all know that it exists for different reasons. So from here, let's say that these dialogues are taking place because there really is interest in, from the city or APD, whoever, to find solutions. I need your ideas. I need those solid solutions so that we can share that and provide that some way for the people that have maybe some funding or power or decision-making power that can make that happen. So we're in that stage now at this dialogue where we really need that input. So concrete solutions.
Well, as Barbara said, a lot of these people do have incomes. As Larry said, a lot of these people are still appealing their SSI. That's not going to change. A lot of these people will never work.
But how do we get that? How do we work with those people?
Here's what we do.
They're not hard to work with.
They're not hard to work
So
with.
that's a case of...
We have been working with them, like we finally got this one guy that he's a bilateral amputee up to his waist.
And who's we been working with them?
ABQ Justice.
Okay.
We've got him a place. We did it on our own.
He was homeless on...
Homeless, the city threw his tent away with his ID and everything, and it took 3 weeks, but I think he's moving in today.
And what does ABQ Justice do?
We're just an activist organization. We're helping the homeless. We're doing what the city isn't doing.
So you're on
But the point being is there is no low-income houses. There's nothing for sliding scale. We did this through an organization called New Life Homes, and the mayor not only won't fund them, they're trying to push them completely out of the picture. And this, but we need more of the income-related, low-income housing for people who are making $700 a month for their 30% for their rent. That's what we need.
So funding is an issue.
Funding the right thing is the problem. I mean, he just gave $2.5 million or whatever to these other things. I mean, can you imagine what kind of piece of property that would have bought to house these folks? Because some of these people really would prefer permanent housing. Some of them do not. Some of them do.
Most of them would like to be off the street, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, solutions. We need concrete.
They're the sliding scale, low-income housing.
Let Klaus start talking, and then I'll get you. Okay, Klaus?
One solution for me would be, I don't have any expectation for homeless people. If I go there, I don't expect anything from them. But I don't go there because I feel like I want to go there. I'm the displacement agency. I'm being called by society. It's a societal problem. So I'm made to tell these people to go someplace else. where the next guy comes to tell these people to go someplace else, which doesn't make any sense in anyone's book.
Right. And if I could shift the question, not about what do we do about homelessness, because I don't think that's what this was for, but how are we looking at solutions of APD interaction with homelessness?
Right, and so I guess I was saying if homelessness exists and if APD training is one thing, but what is the other dynamic that needs to be addressed around?
The city ordering APD to continue to move these people around, that would be one good thing. Leave them alone.
Right. I think in general, we need to encourage people to have more compassion. I want to respectfully disagree with this person and anybody who says we should have no expectations of the homeless. Listen, they want to have some expectations. They don't want to be seen as wastrels who want to do nothing. Give them a little responsibility. Let them have some autonomy in their tent city and make their own decisions. They'll police the place. They'll keep people who are causing trouble out of there. They'll accept drug addicts and crazy people, crazy behavior, because they're compassionate people who want to participate in their own solutions. This idea of chasing them around is terrible. I say, ask them what they want and need. Don't go there and tell them what you're offering. Ask them what they want. Leave them alone if they're not seeking interaction. Meet them where they are. Don't tell them there is a meeting at Taylor Ranch. Tell them there's a meeting at the Good Shepherd this afternoon. Respect them as humans. Introduce yourselves to them and create relationships. Most of these people are just like the people sitting in the chairs. They simply have lost their housing. They are not threatening. They are more likely to be hurt by anybody sitting in this room than they are to hurt you. They are not violent. They are not confrontational. They simply want to be left alone to solve their own problems, and if you give them some responsibility and some autonomy, they will step up to play. Believe me, you should go and meet the people in the tent city. You will find out they are not anything like you think homeless people are. Even drug addicts, even people with mental illness can be part of the community that functions well.
Are you going to Tent City in the day or at night?
Both. Yeah. We've been there all hours of the day, you know. When people come with guns, we've been there. When people come with gasoline to throw on their tents, we've been there for those things. Yeah, we've been there. We've seen how people are treated. It is shameful. Our whole culture needs to be taught more compassion. The kinds of comments people make online when there are stories about the homeless are uneducated, vitriolic, bitter, and poor representations of humanity. What are the things people say about each other?
Compassion starts with us referring to people as person with an addiction, not a drug addict. So I want all of us to really start talking from that place, because we are people first, including, you know, everybody in this room.
And it has to be priorities. We have priorities to pave the, do new trails in the Bosque. We've come up with money to do that. We've come up with money to entice police officers not to retire, including, people who already retired who are now collecting more money. Well, there's money out there that we could put into the training that Klaus talked about, that we could put into the housing, that could, when the COAST, I forget what COAST actually stands for. Do you remember what?
Community Outreach something team.
When that first developed, it's a team that came out to do service for the homeless. It included part of APD. Before that happened, and I was working and feeding homeless in the park and negotiating with the city and not harassing homeless in certain areas, they did not get any cooperation from a lot of the homeless community when something happened. In fact, they just shut down. When COAST happened and they went out to the parks to start handing out blankets to hand out, hygiene materials, to refer them to services. That attitude changed. They started getting cooperation from people on the street. There are many homeless people on the street were now talking and not seeing every cop, not all cops, but not every cop as a threat to them, because most homeless people have had a bad experience with a police officer.
Bad experiences.
But now certain things have happened with the coast that they want to do background checks before they do needle exchange or something like that. So that trust has gone down, and it's not what it used to be in community relations. So something more that the homeless, people who are homeless, not the homeless, people who are homeless need to be served by the police as much as people in Tanawin or in Los Ranchos or in Taylor Ranch. APD is there to serve and protect them as much as anybody else, and that has to be part of the training. And even if people are disrespectful to an officer, the officer still needs to maintain their professional, and that needs to be part of the training, and respectful attitude towards them. And just because somebody is homeless, experiencing homelessness, and the face of homelessness, we think of, dirty, grungy, somebody who has a drug addiction. There's families, there's tons of children who are homeless. They get, especially teenagers who are homeless and on their own, get an amazing amount of abuse. The face of homelessness is multitude, as we are here. I've been homeless. So a lot of it with APD is the direction, priority setting from the policymakers. I mean, people have been going to the mayor and to the city commissioners for years and pushing and bringing up these issues, and there hasn't been the will to do anything, just more oppression and demonizing of advocates and those who are experiencing these problems. And if people have a hard time in a sick society, operating in a sick society, as opposed, we need to help them, and we need to shift those things in society to make it easier for them to operate within that, rather than continue the cycle of oppression and sickness that we push on ourselves and on everybody else.
We don't have to try to force them to conform. That's the big problem. We're trying to force them to conform to our needs.
Yeah,
And that's, we need to work the other way.
So, I mean, I guess what I've gathered is that what you all are saying is not from only the community perspective, but also the police perspective, because this exists, homelessness exists, that what would be helpful is to understand the who and the why and the how and what is needed around the homelessness. And maybe as opposed to training, it's about not only community, but APD understanding more of that, because it's a dynamic and it's not an easy dynamic to understand. But if there is that clarity and that understanding and that communication around that, maybe then it will be, like the word has been used to APD.
The orders just came from the top. Leave the homeless people alone. I think APD would leave them alone.
And there's been, within APD, I mean, their hands are tied to a certain extent,
Right.
especially by the policymakers above them.
Right.
People like Rob Perry and Mayor Berry.
Exactly.
But when they're also more willing, because I interacted with them in many of these situations. There was an order of eviction from one of the 10 cities, and it was, 8 or 9 at night. Where did they expect them to go? I was able to call one of the deputy chiefs and say, can you at least hold off till tomorrow? That's not a solution, but there. And he called back, that's a reasonable request. He called the commander called the sergeant. The sergeant came out. was very understanding. Their attitude was, you know, what you would expect of a service provider. So there's, and I also got back to the deputy chief and, you know, said that the sergeant and the officer's attitude was very much appreciated by everybody in Tent City. So I think there's a willingness amongst individuals within APD to work. I mean, and a lot of the officers that I've talked to have said, this is ridiculous. You know, we're not doing anything here. You know, solving the problem by making people move, but they have their orders to make people move.
Thank you. We have about, I would say, 10 minutes left, and we need at least 5 to close up, so.
And evaluation boards.
I had a comment, maybe it's up to the city to have a liaison person / mental health, homeless / APD to work with the community to try to figure out, you know, what is the problem, what solutions can be done to try to take care of the problem, or to try to decrease the problem. Since it's some people that don't want to, they don't want to live in a home, they don't want to live in a tent, they want to live by themselves. So maybe it's up to the city to decide what to do, instead of people telling the city what they should do. Maybe we should just put this problem to the city government and say, okay, this is your problem. This is what we found out through all these meetings. Now it's up to you to try to figure out what
And I think that's what
problem.
they're trying to do with these CCP meetings.
And historically, that's happened, and we're where we're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Because
yeah.
they haven't taken on the courage to do something about it.
That don't mean that you should give it up, because in the past, you try to do it, but the city is not willing to do it, or the mayor or the government is not, the state is not willing to do it. But that don't mean that you should just say, well, okay, we're
Let's
not
just
gonna
give
go
up,
there.
right.
I agree, but where I disagree is that we as a community just say, oh, it's it's your issue.
No.
Go deal with it.
You can still be an advocate.
Yeah.
This is what you're doing right now, but then we having this meeting to try to find a solution to the problem.
Yeah.
So if you're taking the problem and just giving it to the city, it's okay, this is what this group found out. They want you to fix this problem.
The city won't do anything.
I want to say that at a lot of the times in these meetings, we get everything that's wrong with APD, the city, everything that's wrong with homelessness and everything. And then when the solution aspect of it comes up, concrete solutions, we don't get many. I'm just going to be, I'm going to put it out there because I've been doing this for a long time. So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I am saying that as you leave, that you start to think, okay, this exists because some of you are on the ground and you know. I learn much from these meetings, and it's like, okay, what can we do? What suggestions, concrete suggestions can we give so that so it can be your voice. This is your chance to use your voice, and so solutions we need.
Dirt.
I have a
A piece of dirt, more 30% sliding scale house.
Solutions are good, but you have to have plans to those solutions.
We have the
We've
plans.
got the
Let them
plans.
listen to us.
So I would suggest draft it,
It's
come up with
drafted.
it.
It's
Then
beautiful plan. To the city, to the
to the
city
mayor,
council.
to the city council.
So all I can say is if you've done, and I'm not advocating
We
for that because
understand.
I'm not the city, but I am saying that if you've presented a plan, that there's the possibility that, it can be considered, and I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying anything like that. I am saying that if we all can just put our minds together to make this work, not only it's like, okay, you have a suggestion for the homeless, how then can APD be a part of that? How does
Stay away
APD
from it.
contribute to that? So it has to be both, it can't be either or. Is all I'm saying, we need solutions.
I got a solution.
What's your
I got a solution.
that can, up with a plan.
I got a
that,
solution. Stop talking.
Okay,
All right, let me talk now.
yes, sir.
Here's a solution. APD doesn't shoot to kill a homeless person. Period.
Okay.
If they have to control that person, they handle it the same way that they do with a wild animal, like a tiger or a lion up a tree, and tranquilize it. A tranquilizer gun, for example. Not a taser, not a 30 caliber bullet, but a tranquilizer drug. The same way that you shoot a tiger up a tree.
I have a better solution. Leave the police out of this because they have no business
Right.
being in
That's
this.
right.
Because it's not a police issue, for God's sake.
But
It's
what
a society
Well,
issue.
the
what do we do
crime being committed.
when we call
Okay, we need to make sure only
If
one
you
person's
build
heard
a
that's here.
$55 million overpass and put it on the ballot, put a $5 million whatever homeless camp on the ballot and give them some space and leave them alone.
Like you.
Here's the solution.
That's what we've been saying. We have the plan. It has been submitted with drawings, with all the entire construct has already been submitted.
So it's in
There's
motion.
also some
It's
other
not in motion
solutions.
because the mayor doesn't want to listen to us.
There's,
What's the point of these meetings if you're not going back to him and saying, here's what we heard, the people said, give us a piece of dirt, give us a place where we can have some subsidized housing.
And tell the chief to quit ordering APD.
Okay, we don't know yet. We can't make assumptions here about what's been done and not done. In this dialogue here, what we're trying to do is get your input. She's recording it. We have people from UNN here that are, I mean, this is a process and I can't make promises. There's no way I can do that, but I
We
can say there's a
understand
way.
that.
Thank
So
you.
let's get more solution.
Exactly.
I have a solution. The solution with the porta potties and stuff, usually when a porta potty gets set up, if it's in a nice secluded area, somebody will set up shop in it and they'll sell drugs from it. And those people still want to go to the bathroom, but there's somebody in there who doesn't, who's got control of the porta potty. So if we were to make porta potties to where it was like a porta potty, but it was open to the view, to where somebody couldn't sit inside and smoke or do whatever they want. It's just like a band across their waist where they were able to sit down and do whatever. And there's a limit on there that says you can't sit here for more than 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, the automatic cleaning system is gonna come on and you're gonna get wet.
So a solution is a porta potty, but then you're saying there's issues in regards to that that need to be addressed.
Yeah, just, instead of having a porta potty, just have a place to urinate. Like some of the people.
Public toilets.
Yeah, public toilets.
And
like-
showers.
Yeah, showers, stuff that can be easily accessed and not used as a place of business to set up my, wherever I want to sell or whatever. You know, something that's very visible.
I think another thing, I think APD policy has to be that you don't harass the homeless, people who are homeless just for that. You don't take away their IDs, you don't destroy their very little property that they have. And when it's found out that there is severe discipline or dismissal. I think, not to be arresting people who are on the street for minor issues like littering, like jaywalking,
Obstructing traffic.
various
Sleeping.
things like that. I mean, that depletes our resources through the judicial system, the health system, and it harasses people, and it sets them back from where they might have been to make advances. That has to be a policy. I think within the city, I appreciate Robin Hammer being here. She was highly criticized in the Department of Justice report for being too aligned with APD, and I think we actually saw that there. It sounded more like she was being an apologetic person or a representative from APD rather than an independent review officer of issues that need to happen. So I think that issue in discipline and oversight needs to be addressed to where there is a real independent officer in looking at those things.
And
Just a
also,
few.
I want to refer back to the DOJ report, because in the last two meetings, I've heard APD officers dismiss the report, absolutely dismiss it. So there's a mentality within the department that we don't need change. Under their crisis intervention section, APD considers specialized responses to incidents involving individuals in a mental health crisis to minimize the need for using force. For facilitating access to community-based treatment, requires APD to establish a mental health response advisory committee. Those are solutions. They're in paper, they're in the DOJ report. Now, it remains to be seen if the leadership in the city and the APD take it seriously.
Plus the guy we're paying, Greedy Greenwood, $350.
Well, and we're paying for the mayor's boyfriend to have a position in the city government. So we've got money for that.
And another thing is,
have
this
3 minutes.
DOJ report came out almost a year ago. It's been almost a year.
Okay, so
April 30th.
I'm hoping Diana got all of that. And we do have others taking notes if Diane misses anything. I want to thank you so much for being a part of this. I feel like this was a really productive meeting. Tyson, you have something to say?
Yes, I just wanted to really quickly thank all of you for being here today. I know we haven't gotten to the end of this.
Who are you?
My name is Tyson Hummel. I am the Alternative Dispute Resolution Coordinator for the city. And so I just want to let you know that although we haven't completed our discussion of this topic today, we are going to have another homeless interest in advocacy dialogue that is going to be published and available for registration this week on the city website. So that's going to be April 30th, and it's going to be at the South Broadway Cultural Center. So please join us, and we really hope to see you there to help flesh out this conversation and really work on this issue some more. Yes, ma'am.
Will the mayor be there?
Thursday.
I can't speak for the,
I
can't speak for either of those people.
So we can get those to the proper.
so I don't know, ma'am.
And what time is that?
That one is going to be 4:30 to 7:30, I believe.
Go to all the homeless shelters and publish it there.
Yeah, we'll bring some people from.
Let them know.
We'll let you meet some people from Flint City.
That's
We'll
what
find
I'm
out.
suggesting.
They're just like you.
You know why they haven't taken your solution yet?
Huh?
You know why they haven't listened to your solution yet? Because it didn't come.
If
with
you
the
can fill out these
trip-wide.
evaluations, just put them upside down in that back table back there.
Yeah, those
Actually,
coming.
it came with
those evaluations
some
are very
saying
important
what
for
type of
us in this
savings.
process.
Did you say you went to the mayor's office?
Thank you.